Alright, today I'm going to do a quick tutorial on dependent drop-downs using Google Apps Script in Google Sheets. So let me run you first through how we got set up in Google Sheets first, and then we'll go into Apps Script and program this out. There are a couple different ways that we're going to handle this. So first off, we're going to show you how to do a single dependent drop-down. Two different ways to do that. I'm going to show you how to do two dependent drop-downs. So first off, we'll look at our first drop-down. So we're going to be able to select anything from here, and then based on that, we'll be able to select something from our dependent drop-down. We'll show a different way here. Here's our first drop-down, and then here's our second ones pivoted out. And then finally here, we have our first selection, our dependent, and our second dependent drop-down here. So we're going to start with this one. So first off, let's get our first selection drop-down in here. And grab this. Let's exclude that top row there. Checked input, and there we go. So now we have meat, fruit, vegetable. Now we just need to add the script. So when we select this, it'll automatically add that dropdown. So let's go ahead and go in here and start building this out. So first I'm just going to add this quick code that when we go to authorize is going to keep us from having to do the same number of permissions. So only current doc restricts the permissions to just this sheet. All right, so let's do function. Let's do drop down. And this one's going to be an auto edit. So we're going to add that event object because we'll need to capture when we select a drop down what we selected. So this is going to be a on edit trigger. So you could do on edit as a function name, but we're just going to do drop down and we'll add a trigger for that. So that way, if you're using this and you want it to work for anyone using the sheet, it will work just fine. All right, so let's do range. Let's get a couple other parameters. Let's get the column. The row. Get the value. And also the source. So this is e.source.getActiveSheet. All right, so now we have our basic variables set up, so we can start going through this. So first off, let's just iron out in case there's a change on a different sheet. So we only want to pick up if it's from data. So source get name equals data. And we only want if value is not equal to blank. All right. So, and then also let's do if column equals to 1. So we're just going to restrict it to selections here, and then we'll populate this. So we have that value. Then we need to basically find the value in that second sheet and get the ones that match it. So let's get our other variables we need. Let's open up our spreadsheet. Let's get up the sheet we're actually working with. So notice we can do this, or we could just do data. So I'm just going to go ahead and do data for now. And then let's get our drop-down sheet. And we're working off our drop 1. All right, so let's get our drop-down data. So what we got here is our starting row. So we're excluding the header, which is in 1, starting with column 1, and then this is finding the last row. Actually, we'll do 1 to get, we do -1 because we have a 2 here, so it's just offsetting. And then we're going to get 2 columns. And then let me actually get this as values. All right. So from here, now we can filter our data. So let's do let dropdowns equal, make an empty array. And now we're going to do just a simple for loop to iterate through our data and return the ones that equal what we need to. So if you've ever used arrays before, the array that we're going to get, let me just pull this real quick here, is going to look something like this. There we go. So this is a sample example of what we're going to have. So we're iterating through, and so each one of these, so let's do this, let this row equal data I. So each time we iterate, we're going to get one of these chunks. And so what we want to do is we want to return this second value when it's equal to, when this first value is equal to the value that we have. So for example, is meat, we want it to see that this is meat and return chicken. So what we're going to do is if this row, remember if you worked with arrays, 0 is the first item. So it's a 0 based, not 1 based. So it can be a little confusing when you have the range is 1 based and then the arrays is 0 based, but so if we have this row 0, and this is going to be compared to our value that we're going to match it to. So do if val, then we're going to do dropdowns, push this row 1. So at the end of the day, we'll wind up a list where all the second items are returned for where it matches the first. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this for now. All right, so our dropdowns is now going to include, when this is done, all the values we need to populate a dropdown. So next, we need to make our dropdown validation rule. So let's go ahead and make this rule. New data validation. Now you can see we have a little pop-up here. It shows us the different things we can do. So we're going to go ahead and do require value in list. And we're going to use our dropdowns. We can do settle out valid. And build. Now we have to find the cell we want to apply to. So if we select meat here, we want that dependent dropdown to show here. So we already have the row from our onEdit. So we just need to offset by 1 column. So what we'll do, we'll go to sheet, get range, we'll get our row, and then we'll do column plus 1, and then we'll do set data validation and rule. All right, so at this point we should have everything we need for this script to run. So we can authorize the script when we add the trigger. I feel like it's a little easier in here, so we're just going to go ahead and authorize this, click allow, and it's going to return an error just because it's an onEdit, so it's saying this E is not defined. So that'll be fine as soon as we add our trigger. So we're going to go here, make sure we're on the right function, and then we just want to change this to onEdit on the event source from spreadsheet. Click save, and now we should be good to go. So we go back here. It's not going to apply it when things are already selected, so let's go ahead and try this again. Meat, and then here we go. Chicken, beef, and pork. So if we change this to fruit, see it working there. Now we have apple, orange, banana, pear, and kiwi. So let's change vegetable. And there we go. So that's all it takes to set up our initial dependent dropdown. And so let's go ahead and go through another case. So let's go up and look at this way to set it up, because sometimes this can be confusing for people to set up because you're repeating meat. And if you paid attention, that's how we were sorting or filtering out what we needed. Basically, we're saying if it equaled meat, return this one. And so that's why we set it up this way. We repeat the first one for each second one. And so this is best if you have a large data set with a number of first selections. But if you only have a few, so we only have 3 here, you can just then populate them below. And this makes it a little easier to manage or add, because then if you need a new one, you can just add it here and so forth. So let's go ahead and look at how we'd set this one up. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just go ahead and make a new script here. I want to save this because we're going to go back and reuse this again. So let's just do code. I can pull up here. Code 2. Go ahead and grab this and save. Now let's just call this one dropdown 2 for now. That's how this one works. All right. So now instead of getting this data here like this on this one, we actually only want to get the correct column. And so what we're going to do here is let's get the titles. Drop down sheet, get range. Now we want row 1, and we have it starting in column 2. And then it's only on one row, so let's click 1. And then let's go ahead and just do drop down sheet, get last column. And then do -1, get values. There we go. I'm actually going to put a flat on this. So what flat does, if you pay attention, I don't have it now, on that array where it had that let array equals, and it had this double array in there for the 2D part. This flat will convert it to 1. So if we had, for example, pork, beef, etc. If we do flat, it's going to remove the inner ones and leave us like this. And this will make it a little easier for the next part. So now all we need to do to get our column is let's do let index equals titles index of value. And so this index of is going to return the number corresponding to where it finds it. So for example, if our value is vegetable, we're going to return this as an array, and it's going to find vegetable as not 0 but 1, since this was 0 based, remember. So if we have a vegetable, we're going to return 1. So what we want to do is add 2 to our index. So let's do let column equals index plus 2. And this will return the column that we need. And so now we can get our data, and then here's our column. We can actually now just get column 1. We could do flat on here. Another thing to keep in mind is this one's getting values. So we'll do that for now, but we're going to come back and get range instead, which is actually going to be very simple to do. But we're going to start with get values, so we're using the same way as we did last time. So we actually won't need this. And so let's actually just get dropdowns. And we'll go from here. So this one's disabled now. Let's go ahead and just comment it out so you know for sure. There we go. All right, last thing we need to do, update this to drop 2. And let's go ahead and check this out. So now chicken, beef, and pork, fruit, carrot, and so forth. So now we're working based on this one. Now one thing to keep in mind with this style is if we're using the values, not the range, if I add, for example, lamb, all right, let's add meat here. Okay, currently we have lamb. If we go back and add goat, your Avenger Cedar, it's not going to show up here. If we select meat again, however, now it's showing up. So you can see one, it's showing up, and the other one's not. And that's because we actually added the data validation as values and not a range. And so if we want these to always be up to date, we'll want to actually change this to a range instead of values. So actually all we have to do here is get rid of the get values part here and change this to range. So let's go ahead and update this. And let's go ahead and clear these out. Clear these data validations. All right, let's try this again. So meat. Now we have chicken, beef, pork, lamb, and goat. If we get rid of goat, now it's no longer on here. So let's go ahead and check another one. And we'll go add that back. So there we have our 4 values. If we go add goat back, it is back on both. So that's how you use a range to do that. And notice that only works on this tile because this tile is the only one that has a fixed range. This one, we could try to use a range, but if you moved it around, then it wouldn't work anymore. All right, so now we're done with that. Let's go to second dropdown, and then I'm just going to show you one more thing about how to clear out dropdowns when maybe you've cleared this out, and we'll automatically remove those dropdowns. So let's go ahead and figure out our second dependent dropdown. So we're going to go to drop 3, and then I'll show you how to do the clearing of the dropdowns. So let's go ahead and disable this one for now. We'll comment it out and bring this one back into play. So what we have set up here is our dropdown for our first column. So when we select here, this will fill in. Now we need to go to the next one. So basically we can just take this and go to our next level. And so we can say if column equals 2. Now we want to do, so if we go to, let's go ahead and add our drop 3. And we want to get meat, and then the second one, and then the third one. So what we want to do here is, just in case, because I'm going to show you real quick here. Like what I'm looking at is I want to search both the first and the second column. So I'm only searching this one. There might be duplicates. Okay, so what we're going to do in this one is we're actually going to add pulling in the first column as well, just to make sure that both of these match when we get our second dependent dropdown. So what we're going to do in here is for, let's go ahead and put some comments on this real quick. First dependent dropdown, and then second dependent dropdown. All right, so we have our sheet, and we can get our first val sheet, get range, we have our row. Now we actually want column -1 and get value. So if we have chicken here, for example, we're going to have chicken as our val right here, and then we'll grab meat as our first val. So now what we want to do is get 3 columns. The rest of this should be fine. And we're just going to get 3. And so here's what we're going to do. We got this all logic can remain the same. We have our this row 0. Which will be this. So 0 we want to equal now first val, not val. And then we can actually just do both in here and say this row 1 equals val. Now we want to change this to 2 because this would be 0, 1, 2. So that will return the third value. And then the rest should all be good. So let's go ahead and check this out. So we have our meat selected. Now if we select chicken, we should get our third drop down. If I didn't make a typo here, let's see what we got here. Script function not found, drop down, aha. You rename that. All right, let's try this again. Let's try chicken. And there is our site independent dropdown. Let's go pork. Oh, there we go. And let's say vegetable. I don't think vegetable would have any. Nope. So vegetable, we go to Brussels sprouts. Shouldn't return anything here. Just a blank one. So let's go one more level. So one thing to keep in mind is you may want this blank to show up, you may not. And so all you have to do here, for example, if you don't want it to show up if there's nothing in the dropdowns, we can do if dropdowns, let's say length is greater than 0, and we can just wrap it in this condition. So now if we go back, let's just delete this data validation real quick. So now, if we select potato, for example, it's saving, saved, it's done, and nothing shows up. So that's one way if you don't want the drop down to show up, and you only want it to show up if there's a secondary one. So for example now, if we go to meat, chicken, it should still show up here. There we go. And then if we select, let's say fruit, orange, and nothing. So this is working appropriately. And so let's look at one more thing. So, and we'll finish our video. So if we delete orange, that's fine. Now if we delete fruit, we still have this drop down. And so if you change this drop down, obviously our script is going to update it, but you may not want this drop down to still be available for them to use. And so what we can do here is we can add one more condition. So let's go in here and grab this. And we'll call this clearing data validations. Let's go ahead and close our loop real quick there. And so what we'll do here is if val equals to blank. And then what we'll do is sheet get range row, and we'll get column 2, row 1, and 2 columns, and then we'll do clear data validations. And so this will clear data validations for both columns. And then let's say we're in column 2. And let's go ahead and change this to 3. And now we can just do this. So what this will do is if our value is blank that we selected, then it's going to clear our data validations. So let's go ahead and check this out. So like here, for example, chicken, this should clear our data validation there. Same thing if we clear out this one. Now let's go ahead and click pork. It's going to select it there. Now, for example, if we unselect meat, we're going to have those both cleared. And so the pork is still here. So maybe if we want to clear that too, you can determine that. And we can just do this. Clear content in there. And then clear our data validation. So let's just rewind this. Meat, pork. Let's clear this so we can get our third. There we go. And so now if we clear out meat, now everything disappears. We got a vegetable. We can select a vegetable. We clear out a vegetable. Our second drop down should clear away. Same thing here. Same thing here. And finally, I don't know if we'll pick it up there. We didn't do anything. Oh, and then there it did. So that's the quick, easy way to manage the dependent dropdowns. And so you can tell from what we did here, you can manage and update this as you need to fit the criteria you need. All right, that is it for today. Hopefully that helps you with creating dependent dropdowns in AppScript. Stay tuned to our YouTube channel for more videos to come.